ended last time with the 5 levels of faith, whoever remembers. Okay. So we said that the Baal Shem Tov, one of his chidushim is that first of all you have to have faith. It's called Dveikuta Boreh. To cling to Hashem means to feel the creation at every moment. And that's the level of faith in the first Makif, in the Chaya. And then there's the level of faith in another Jew. Or anything that has to do with that criteria. We'll see in a moment that has to do with not with Hashem creating the world, but rather with something that's, as it were, above the world. And it's outside, it's already outside. In that sense, we've talked many times about this, that a non-Jewish perspective preserves the world. The most it can do is want to preserve what there is, which is a tremendous thing, because without Noach's frame of mind, then there'd be no world. If there wasn't at least Noach, then when Hashem brought the flood, so we wouldn't have a world at all. So there has to be that level of preservation. But the Torah and what the Jewish mindset brings into the world is that there can be a new reality, which is higher than the reality that there is now. It's not just the world is being renewed; it can be something entirely new, completely new. So it's a rejuvenation that's like something from nothing. Reju. So then becomes a rejuvenation. That's a very big difference, and it also means the other way that the Baal Shem Tov called it, we said, is Mesiras Nefesh. That he's willing to sacrifice himself. When he says sacrifice myself, it's to say that everything that I know about myself until now, I'm willing to purge it. Not just purge it, I'm willing to forsake it. I can be something new entirely tomorrow. I don't have to be what I was today. And certainly, that's what the prophets talk about. That they say there'll be a new heaven, a new earth. Something entirely new. It's not to go back to Gan Eden. It's to create what Adam Rishon was supposed to do, which was supposed to do more after Gan Eden, to come to a higher level. There's something that didn't exist yet. So one of the big images, and this is what we'll look at today to understand this, since we mentioned Gan Eden, I'll mention it now already, is that in Gan Eden there were 4 rivers. But it's not clear how these 4 rivers came out, because it says that Nahar Yotze Me'eden, that a river came out of Eden, Veipared Ve'il Arba Rashim. I'm saying it a little bit wrong. It doesn't sound right in my ears. Misham Mipared Ve'ayal Arba Rashim. And from there it split and divides into 4 rivers. So there's an original river, and then it becomes 4 rivers. And the Rebbe, when he talked about it, there's a lot of, about the Pshat, there's a lot of difficulty in understanding how this works, because which one is the original river? So everybody knows, right? Which one is the original river out of the 4?
Not everybody knows.
The Prat. The Prat is the Prat is the main one. What's called the what do they call it today? Euphrates.
Euphrates.
Yeah.
So interesting because Yipared now has like the same.
It's a little bit similar.
Yeah.
It's mentioned the last, so it's like sometimes the last is like the all-inclusive one. So the understanding is, if you go today, it's real. I used to spend hours at night with the Google Earth looking for where does the Euphrates start? Where's the first? No, the Euphrates is from Turkey. So it's on the border between Syria and Turkey, and you can mamish follow it up and try to decide where this wellspring starts, where this thing starts. So that's the main river, and then that the Hideko, which is called the, what do they call it today? What's the Hideko called? What's the other river in Iraq? Euphrates and the. They call in Arabic they call it Hideko. They call it by the same name exactly. I don't remember what it's called in English. So it has a name. So that it comes from the Plat is not so difficult to believe. The Tigris, thank you. That's what they call it in English, which is a completely Roman name. It has nothing to do with nothing with the original name. So it explains that the Plat goes underground, meaning the fact that you have a wellspring somewhere doesn't mean that the water doesn't continue underground and come out in another place. So there it's easy to understand that it came out in this other place, and the fact that it came out in this other place, it became the Tigris, the Hideken. So it's like two wellsprings that really connect to the same source. But the more difficult one is the Nile. So the Rebbe has a sikha on it, and he says that really the same thing that happens with the Tigris also happens with the Nile. That's very hard to understand because the Nile starts way south in Africa, like we're somewhere in Kenya, and then it flows. It's one of the few rivers in the world that flows from south to north. Most of the rivers in the world flow from north to south. There's no good explanation for why that is, but the Nile goes from south to north. So he says the same thing. It somehow flows underneath. Anyway, it's an image that we need to break apart. We talked a little bit about this image when we talked about what's the fourth one?
Pishon.
Pishon is the Nile.
Gichon.
Gichon. So what's the Gichon? I don't remember. I
Gichon.
don't know what the Gichon is. I think it's the Jordan, but I could be wrong. What's the point? The point is that, so the Baal Shem Tov said that you to believe in yourself, you have to first believe in another Jew. So to believe in another Jew, that's a trick, as it were, in order to have self belief in the self. So we said all together last time that there's 5 levels of faith here above the first one. Above faith in Hashem as recreating the world at every moment, there it's yesh me'ayin. Hashem recreating the world is that you see the yesh, you see the being coming out of nothingness at every moment. That's called chokhmah. That's the chaya. That's the first surrounding light of the first surrounding light of the soul. And the yechida is divided into 5 levels. And the yechida is not yesh me'ayin. It's not called yesh me'ayin because it's not coming out of nothingness. It's rather 5 levels of things that are like their source. Okay, we'll see the hint. There's a gematria for this that the Baal Shem Tov taught. So there's 5 levels of things that are like the source itself, and there it's not yesh me'ayin. It's just yesh. It just is. There's no process there. It's just that you to see it, that this is the same thing as, for all intents and purposes, as far as we can grasp in our mind, this is like being with Hashem. It's like seeing Hashem. It's like connecting to Hashem completely, like to the source of everything. Okay, so what were these 5 things? So we said, so it's on this page that Avi printed out for us. And faith in Hashem, and faith in Moshe Rabbeinu and his extension into every generation, and faith in the people of Israel, and Klalut Am Yisrael is the exact language. Klalut means the general aspect of the Jewish people. And then there's faith in every Jew, and finally faith in myself. Okay? So these 5 levels, they go together. How do they go together? So there's a number of different models that connect them, and then when we understand the model, we can better understand why is. So here we brought 4. Okay, actually 5.
Five.
Can you just do one?
Try. First, I have to understand one, and then maybe understand the others. So the simplest thing is just that it's a Yud Kei Vav Kei. This we said last week.
But that's
The tip of the Yud is the faith in Hashem, and then Yud, Moshe Rabbeinu, who's always the Chaya of the Jewish people, and faith in people of Israel. That's like Nishmot Yisrael, like the neshama of the Jewish people. That's the Hey, and faith in every Jew is like Yaakov. That he gives birth to all the Jews. That's the Vav, Tiferet, the splitting up into different tribes and into different individuals. And finally, the Malchus of it all is faith in myself. The final Hey is faith in myself. And faith in myself, we started explaining this a few times, we never really got into it. Malchus is always Shechina. When you say Malchus, you mean Hashem's divine presence. So one of the biggest chidushim of the Baal Shem Tov, as far as I can tell, is to understand that subjectivity is the Shechina. That's a big statement. I hope it's true. I've heard it almost said this way from Rav Yitzchak, but I haven't heard it exactly said this way.
Say it again.
That subjectivity is the Shechina. That my subjective take on reality is the Shechina. You know, I don't have to look for the Shechina outside. I can look, it's okay. But I have to know that the Shechina is also in me. How is it in me? My subjective picture of reality. And what the Baal Shem Tov was trying to say was that you need subjectivity in order to fix the world. You need to have a subjective perspective. You have to develop enough so that you have your own take, your own consciousness, which in a sense is separate from everybody else's. And that is your part in the Shechina that you have to elevate.
Aren't we mainly subjective?
Well, not just mainly, I think, we're almost entirely. But the rectification of that subjectivity comes from the objectivity of Torah or the objectivity of other people. Meaning that the moment that I'm willing to subtract myself from the equation, that means like to give up on my subjective perspective and to fix my perspective based on how other people see it. And all the more so how the Torah sees it. So Moshe Rabbeinu, he's the big fixer of subjectivity because he's the most objective of everybody. Because it says that Moshe Rabbeinu, Tmunat Hashem Yabit, he sees Hashem's perspective. He sees the world from Hashem's perspective. That's how the Alter Rebbe explained this verse. It's not that he sees a picture of Hashem, because Hashem doesn't have a picture, but he sees how Hashem sees the world. And in that sense, Hashem is objective.
What's the passage?
Utmunat Hashem Yabit.
Oh.
It's not here. I didn't put it here.
So what?
So Moshe is the most object,
Yes.
not subject.
Right. So why do we have to develop our own if all we're going to do is elevate it anyway?
Because that's the big wedding in a person's life between my subjective and Moshe Rabbeinu's objective.
Where is that passage?
What?
Where is that passage?
In Parashat Ba'alotcha, when it says that Moshe Rabbeinu, Vayish Moshe Anav Mikol Adam, zeh Utmunat Hashem Yabit. Hashem says it about him. He sees the world from my perspective. So, even, what does it mean to have faith in another Jew? It means to have faith in his subjective outlook on things. I can't do it on myself, because if I do it just on myself, I just have faith in my own subjectivity, I haven't fixed it at all. But here these are levels of, as it were, of coming closer and closer to a subjective that's objective. Meaning, when I say that Moshe Rabbeinu is objective, he's more objective than anybody else, so somebody would right away say, but he's also a human being. So his subjective, even if you say that he's very objective, but it's his subjective. That's how he sees himself. But his subjective is so rectified that it's like saying that he's objective already. And there's an objective level of believing in what the Jewish people want and need, and like how they see the world. That's also very rectifying towards me. for myself, for my subjective. So that's why it's called klalut Am Yisrael. It's like the feeling that a person has of voiding themselves, meaning annulling their own point of view for the benefit of the many. Okay? The many have that the needs of the many are wider in scope than my own. So I don't do it all the time, but I have to have.
So we're just supposed to believe in it.
Yeah,
Obviously, it doesn't
it's a
happen.
belief. Yeah. No, it means that this is one of the things that's developed through faith, meaning that it's too big. We said once about faith. And faith, as opposed to knowledge, is a makif, meaning that is something that you can integrate into yourself. Faith always means that I can't integrate it fully. So what do? I have faith in it. It stays outside of me. Why can't I integrate it? Because it's infinite. All these things are infinite in their size, if you want to, meaning that my consciousness can't contain the whole thing. So it always remains as faith. I can't fully integrate it into myself. That's like saying I can't take it and transport it into myself, and now I have it, and I can just trust myself now. I can just have faith in myself. No, it's always going to stay out. It's always going to surprise me. It's always bigger than anything I've fathomed until now. It'll always be a bigger thing. Okay, so this whole thing, I don't want to get into it in length, but it's all in this prayer that Rav Yitzchak wrote. So the beginning of the prayer was something that Rabbi Yaakov of Emden wrote. It's called the prayer before learning. So it says, I'll read it in the Hebrew, הנני רוצה ללמוד כדי שביאני התלמוד לידי מעשה ולידי מידות ישרות ולידי ידיעת התורה. So I want to learn, meaning my kavanah, my intent in learning, is so that the learning bring me to action and to good character traits and to know Torah and to knowledge of Torah. That's what it says in the Siddur of Rabbi Yaakov of Emden. So Rabbi Yaakov of Emden, either he found it or he wrote it himself. So this clearly is three levels: action, which is lower hay, and then good character traits, midot, which is the vav. And to know Torah, Yediat Torah itself is always in hay. It's understanding. So there's two levels that are missing. So he wanted to complete it in some way. So how did he complete it? So he said the fourth level is what we discussed last time, Dveikuta Boreh. It should bring me, the learning should bring me to Dveikuta Boreh. To Dveikuta Boreh means that I'll see recreation at every moment. So that my learning can bring me to that level. But then the fifth level is very hard to capture because the fifth level is very big. So you put all five aspects of faith into the fifth level. So the fifth level is long, and it says "V'lidei hafatzat mayanot tehom rabba," into the spreading of the well springs. This we've heard of, but these are called the well springs of the deep abyss. Ve'arubot hashamayim niftachu. This is the pasuk from Noach. And the windows of the heavens were opened. Umalha haaretz de'ah et Hashem, and the earth will be full of knowledge of Hashem. K'mayim layam mechasim, just as waters cover the oceans. Bevi'at goel tzedek b'mra b'yameinu amen. With the coming of Mashiach, speedily in our times. So the last part is very complex, and it's too complex in my opinion. It's not easy. I mean, kids remember it, but if you have to learn it as an adult, so a lot of people say this prayer without the last two levels when they start learning every day. It's become very accepted. But the last two levels they're very complex. So they include a number of different, call it fivesomes, of things that the main thing is what we learned last time. These are 5 levels of faith in the crown itself. Okay, so that's the first column basically. Yud Kei Vav Kei with the types of faith. Now to understand this a little bit better, so let's try to see the third one, which is the abyss. It starts with the abyss. So what is the abyss? The abyss, tehom, is another. What does tehom mean? This word abyss. When you say something is abysmal,
Deep.
you say it's deep. Okay?
No end?
No end. So first of all, you see right away that this has something to do with the infinite. In Hebrew, tehom comes from the word toheh, which is to wonder. I can't know. So the absolute being, looking at the third column, the absolute being of Hashem is infinite. It's incomprehensible. You're always wondering more. It's always deeper than what you thought. So it's called the abyss.
Or with the O?
Oh,
Sorry?
oh,
Oh.
oh.
Wonder. Can.
Question.
Maybe it makes her
Question.
mind wander also. That's the question that the angels ask when we say keter. So one of the things we say that the angels ask is Ayeh Mekom Kvodo. Where is the place of his honor, his presence? That word Ayeh is a holy name. It's considered to be the name of the keter, one of the names of the keter.
Big question mark.
So this also affected Moshe Rabbeinu, because they come together here. Because remember, we learned this from the verse, "Ve'aminu b'Hashem u've'Moshe Abdo." They had faith in Moshe, and they had faith in Hashem and in Moshe his servant. They go together. They're like the tip of the Yud and the Yud. So about Moshe Rabbeinu, it says that we don't know where he's buried. And it's not just that we don't know, that he's buried in a place called Nevo. And if you go up, you see the grave below. If you go down, you see the grave above. Wherever you look, you can't. So it's a little bit different than Hashem. About Hashem, maybe it's very different, but by Hashem, it's like I don't know at all where. I don't know anywhere I look it's not there. Meaning the moment that I look there, it's not there. By Moshe, it's just on one dimension. It's either up or down. So it says about Moshe Rabbeinu that he's Chatzil Ulemala Elokim. Half and above he's like God, and half and below he's like man. So the part that's like man is that you think you see it, but then you go there and you see that no, it's like godly. So I don't know where it is. In the soul, this is what's called the hidden conduits in the earth and the hidden conduits in the mind. There are hidden conduits, like what we said about the four rivers, that they start all from the Prat. That would be like the Kutso Shel Yud. And then there's hidden conduits that bring them to come out in different places. When they come out in different places, I think I skipped. No, I didn't skip this. That's already all the way down in rivers. If you look at the second, from the abyss, it goes all the way down to an actual river that comes out. And then there's much more because we've only here come to the understanding of the crown. So there's more levels after that. Then there's Nechalim, which is the Vav, and then there's the ocean. Kol ha-nechalim olchim el hayam. And from the ocean, it reconnects back to the abyss. So this whole thing, you can learn it as what's called the water cycle on Earth, but that's not what we're trying to do. So, but it's actually a very interesting scientific meditation to take how water recycles on Earth and to see it as related to these levels. But the way the water recycles on Earth is basically how the thought in the mind works. They correspond one to another. It only goes to river because once it's a river, it's already revealed to everybody completely. So that's what's called faith in myself. Once it's faith in myself, then everybody sees it already. There's something. What we explained is that I'm taking down from the circle and bringing a line down. So the river is already a line. It's already, when I have faith in myself, I'm ready to have confidence, and I'm ready to bring it down now, and transform it into motivational energy for what I do. But this whole thing just happens in the mind, or in the crown. It's even above the mind. So when we talked about each of us having many talents that we haven't revealed yet, so those talents, they come from the abyss. Really, that's their source. So the more a person has faith in Hashem, the more he awakens his abyss. And what does it mean, faith in Hashem? It means that no matter how much I think I perceived, I don't. As much as I think that I know about Hashem, is this ability to say, Hashem is an abyss. I don't know in the end. It's like, again, in faith by the Baal Shem Tov is always yesh and ayin. That you think you perceive, and you're willing to forsake it. You're willing to give it up. But when it comes to Hashem, He's absolute being. Because the whole idea here is that even with all that I negate, Hashem is still Hashem. It doesn't change. By Moshe Rabbeinu, we said he's hidden conduits. He's already something happening here. He's bringing things out, but you don't know where he is. You can't really place him. You don't know exactly where he is.
Could you just explain what are these levels of this city? You don't have to explain the levels, but what is this? What is the general pattern? How do we get to this? How do we get this delineation?
To what?
So if I had to look for hidden conduits in my mind, I wouldn't know what to look for. So that's why we have the other, the simplest
what
one.
is all this? I'm just trying to figure out what's this. Like, how do we have these categories? Where is it stemming from?
We have them anyway. It's like the Gidim Sheba'aretz, that's what hidden conduits is called in Hebrew. Gidim. So one of the explanations used to be, like very crude if you want, is that you think so hard that your gidim, your blood vessels bulge. Okay? It's like they're hidden now. You can't see them. But in somebody who's thinking very hard, suddenly you see the forehead, but it's mostly these ones. In the forehead, it's usually a shin. It's mamash a shin. If you've ever seen, yeah.
The letter shin.
Okay, you mamash see the letter shin. It's very clear. The three here, they go like this. By most people, you can't see them, but by people who really think hard, so the gidim start to show. There's one of the meanings of conduits is that it's also the blood vessels. So it's like it's very crude. I wouldn't say that if somebody his gidim don't show, his blood vessels don't show, it means that he doesn't think hard. Maybe he does think hard. Maybe his anatomy is such that you can't see it. But the whole idea is that it's like flow inside the brain or inside the mind that's so powerful, but you can't see it. You normally can't see it. It's underground. It's not meant. In some people, it comes out. So it's like you see it. In any case, it doesn't spurt out. It's not a wellspring. You only see the. It's like if you would say in I have to. There's a whole book that the Mittler Rebbe wrote to explain this mashal.
Wow.
And unfortunately, I'm not very versed in it, even though it's mamish probably the most important book in terms of how to think in the world ever written. And I think that he mentions what comes to mind, but I can't say for sure. I think that he mentions that it's like a train of thought. It's like that the hidden conduits are whether you can hold your thought and not let it slip to different things. It's like this ability to hold on to your train of thought, and it keeps getting longer and longer. Can you keep adding cars, and you have to pull them all, not leave any of them behind. So usually when you're learning when you're learning Talmud, that becomes a very big deal, because it's a lot of twists and turns, and each time you're adding another svara, another understanding, and you have to pull them all along, and then sometimes you lose your train of thought, and then you have to start from the beginning. You have to rebuild the train again, car by car, until you have everything. So that, I think that's one of the examples that he gives in terms of. Sorry? Oh, Shara Yichud. Shara Yichud. It's a very, very difficult book, and it's probably the most important book on thinking ever written. Mittler. The Alter Rebbe has it in short. The Mittler Rebbe tried to explain it in a way that people could relate. He has tremendous parables there to explain every piece of what he's talking about. But it's a lot of material, and sorry, I'm not bucky enough to remember exactly what he says. But the one we want to focus on is the what we call here the faith in the people of Israel and the faith in every Jew. So faith in the people of Israel is what's called the power of the intellect, or a sealed wellspring. The hint is that in Shir HaShirim, he describes the Jewish people. It's like the groom is describing his bride, and he says, Gan Na'ul Achoti Kala. Sorry, he starts, Gal Na'ul Achoti Kala, Gan Na'ul Ma'yan Chatum. So he says the Jewish people, my bride, says the Hashem, as it were, she's like a sealed. Gal is like stones one on another. It's sealed, and usually you put the gal over some wellspring in order to keep the people from accessing the water. So it's Gal Na'ul Achoti Kala, my bride is like a sealed wellspring. Gan Na'ul, she's a sealed garden, Ma'yan Chatum, and a sealed wellspring. So you get the idea here that's very closed. The whole idea is that you can't know what's in there. It's sealed off. So that's called. Hashem says about the Jewish people. What's he trying to say? So the idea is, this is called the Koach HaMaskil. So in each individual, this means that I have all the talents in the world. I'm not lacking anything.
Jewish people.
Every individual can say about himself. It's said about the Jewish people, but it also transports to every individual. That I have all the talents I need. Everything is there. Who said I have everything I need?
Hashem created us.
No. Who said? Yaakov said. When he met Esav, okay. So Esav said, I have more than enough. But Yaakov said, I have everything I need. And that's like an incredible thing. That he says, I have everything. How can you know if you have everything you need? It's like you bring somebody a sack, and it's closed, and you say, this is everything you need for the rest of your life. Can that be? As long as it's closed, yes. The moment I open it and start taking it apart, maybe it's not enough. So the trick here is to go back to this, to understanding that there's something sealed that I can't know exactly what's inside. What is this like? It's a little like Schrodinger's cat today. That in what state is it? Is it alive, or is it? As long as you don't open it, it's everything. Okay, everything's there. The moment you open it, so it collapses into one thing or another.
It's interesting. It's like bracha matzuya.
So the idea here is that you can always to believe in the Jewish people is to believe that no matter what, it may look like there's not enough strength, there's not enough talent, there's not enough this, not enough that. It can recreate itself, because it's really at its core. Nobody's ever touched it. Nobody's ever taken it apart. Nobody knows what's inside. It's a closed, it's a closed entity that when it opens up suddenly for some time, it'll, whatever you need, it'll bring out. Where do we feel this? We feel this about our thoughts. Okay. Even if I've said, like some people say, you have an X number of words you can speak in your life. When it's over, it's over. The truth is, you have an X amount of words you can speak today. And then you go to sleep, and there's a new amount of words. Okay? It's a new, it's a Hashem mechadesh ota, like Hashem makes it new. So the idea is that there has to be something concealed here that I don't know what it really is, and I have faith that there's such a thing, and therefore tomorrow I can say all new things that I couldn't say today. So we had a name for this when we talked about some months ago. We called it Shashuyim Atzmim. We said it's recreation. I can always recreate. That's why it's in Bria, this whole thing. Because faith in the people of Israel is like that there's a power of recreation of everything you need. And it's Shashuyim Atzmim. It's like what it says about, what does Hashem call us sometimes? Especially about Ephraim. He likes saying this about Ephraim. Yeled Shashuyim. Because it's like Hashem, He plays with him, and suddenly it's a new game, and suddenly it's a new, like every generation, it's like a new story altogether. And you didn't think that they could. That's the secret. Sometimes people say, "Oh, the empires disappeared," and this and this. And this. So, what's the secret of the longevity of the Jewish people? That you can't really tell what the source is. The source is sealed. So every time, in every generation, something new. So the fact that somebody says, we're very different than they were, that Baal Shem Tov was. I'm very, nothing like, I mean, we're different in our understanding. We're very, very different from the people in the Bais Sheni. We're really different from the people in the time of David HaMelech. We're really different from the time of the Avos. So Reb Nachman tried to capture this a little. He said, I'm going to teach you a new path, which is really not a new path. It's really what Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov did. So what are you saying? What I'm saying is, whatever created Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov also created me. In that sense, we come from the same source, but the source is concealed. We don't know what the source really is. You can't do it, but you have to believe in it, that whatever it brings out is what's needed in that generation. That's what it means to believe in the Jewish people. It means that if these are the talents that you see here and now, they came from the same source as the talents that came out in the time of the Avos, that came out in the time of the judges, it's all the same, but it's all new. It's like that's what's needed now. So that's having faith in the Jewish people. The understanding that it comes from the same source. So as strange as this looks, that I have, 4 million Jews on the brink of assimilation, and so many who are leftists and self-hating, and all these things. And on the other side, I have all these people who think that nationalism is the truth, and all the mishagas in the middle. All this is exactly what the source wanted now, because this is what's needed now at this moment. These are the talents you need. In the same way that you have trust, that you don't have to think everything through every day. Okay? You don't have to. It's the same thing that Hillel, that Hillel used to say. Baruch Hashem Yom Yom. That every day is its own cheshbon. It's a different tally in each generation. It's a different tally every day. I don't have to prepare for tomorrow. I have to live now, where it is now. Because what I have now is my source gives me what I need. I have all that I need. Yesh li kol. I don't need anything more. So you need a lot of faith for that. That you don't have to. I have this problem that whenever I write, I'm always trying to predict what challenges somebody will challenge what I just said, what I just wrote.
Madama Shet Hashem.
And they never end. You can't write that. Because you have to write, and if there's a challenge tomorrow, so you write something more. You explain something more. If you try to predict everything from the beginning, you don't have faith. It's like not having faith. A person who has faith, so he says, what I need tomorrow, I'll have tomorrow. It's not bitachon yet. It's just faith that there is such a source in us. And it's what carries us from generation to generation. And this is why there's no end to the Jew is eternal. But it's a good thing. Why is it a good thing? Because that's what it means to mimic Hashem. That Hashem is infinite. So there's also a level of infinite in this people. And you have to have faith in that. It's not, you can't prove it. You can't show it to you. I don't know where it is, because it's Gal Na'ul, Ma'ayan Khatum. It's a sealed wellspring. But it's a wellspring. At any moment it can show up. So when it shows up, what's it called? When the wellspring is opened for a moment, and the wellspring comes out drop by drop. So that's called the revealed wellspring. And from that you have faith in every Jew. Meaning every Jew has a piece of this. And each one is a drop from this wellspring when it opens up. It's a famous story about the Gichon. There's the Gichon and there's the Gichon. The Gichon, I guess it's the same one. I guess I don't know what to say. Obviously I haven't learned this well. The fourth river is called Gichon. But in Yerushalayim there's Ma'ayana Gichon.
Right.
There's a wellspring. I don't know. Now suddenly I noticed it's the same word. The same name.
Right, so
Maybe.
Ma'ayan, and what is this? The Nahal?
Nahara Gichon.
Yes, it's different.
It might come from there.
Okay, maybe it's a wellspring. It takes from.
The water that's supposed to come out of the Beis
Bacon.
Hamikdash.
Right.
Right.
Which is also that. In any case, I don't know enough about it, so I guess this is a black hole in my learning. So in the Gichon, the Gemara says, what was the Gichon? The Gichon was a wellspring that was just under Yerushalayim, in that valley between Har HaZeitim and between the Temple Mount. So they used to go down there to bring. Okay, that's the end of it. That's where that's the tunnel that Chizkiyahu made. But the original place is much further up. So there is a wellspring, and it says that's where they went down to draw water for the water jubilation. How do we say it? What's it called? Okay. Water jubilation. Nisuch hamayim. So it took a long time to fill the cup, or the whatever vessel it was, because it goes drop by drop. It's called Mea Shiloach Olchim Leat. The Shiloach is what comes out of it, is the river that comes out of it. But the Ma'ayan is called Ma'ayan Gichon. So it says it came out drop by drop, and it took a long time to fill it. So they didn't want to wait a long time, so they tried making the hole bigger, so then more water would come out. But instead of more water coming out, less water came out.
Wow.
Meaning that it had something to do with pressure. That's how wellsprings work. It's something about how the pressure is built along the conduit of the wellspring that it pulls the water up. I don't know what the physical laws are, but there's some law of fluids that's at work there. So when they made it bigger, then nothing came out. It came out even slower. So there's this thing about that it comes out drop by drop. That's the example of it. So what it's trying to say is that every Jew, the faith in every Jew, is unique. It's a drop in and of itself. It's like all the drops are seemingly the same, but what separates them is that each one came out separately. Each one's different in some way. What is this? this drop, this drop of water, this drop of the abyss, if you want, that's what's called the part of God above in a Jew. That's the divine soul. So, what does it mean? It means that he has a shlichus. When we said that the fountainhead is bringing out water, it's like the Jewish nation, as it were, the Knesset Yisrael, bringing out the talents it needs in each generation. It means that it has a purpose, and the purpose is given to each one individually. And that's what we mean when we say that each person has a shlichus. That's why it's called. What's the word we just said? It's called the Ma'ayan HaGichon, and the river is called Shiloach. And Shiloach comes from Shlichut. So you draw it out. So I have to believe that every Jew has a shlichus, and he has the talent for that shlichus. He has the drop of water that he needs. So this is usually when you think of Chelek Eloka Mimal, of the divine soul that's part of God above. So I don't know if you would use the image of water. Usually, what would you use? Usually we use fire. So we say that you light many candles. What? Yeah. But when you say like the point, so point is more like water already. But the main thing here is the reason this is all in water, this is all doing with water, is because the mind is, the intellect is called watery. It's cold and wet. That's how it's described. Kal velach. First of all, it's cold. It's more objective. It's not warm. Warm would be like the heart, that's more subjective. But it's also wet, and the wetness is this image of the abyss having conduits under the ground until it comes out into a concealed wellspring and then a revealed wellspring. And finally becomes a river. The river is already, you can't build the river, that's the idea here, that the more Jews you have faith in, the more you reveal your own river. It's like that you're built, your ability to have faith in yourself is made up from many drops of faith in another Jew. I have faith that he has a drop, and she has a drop, and so on. So the more people that I have, the more I believe in, the more is revealed in me this quality of a river already.
It's easy to believe people have it, but they don't use it.
Say that. But first of all, believe that he has it. Don't think for a moment that he's ois. Don't think that he's out of the fold. There's no such thing.
Well,
He has it. Now, if I'm able to also reveal it in him or her, so I certainly receive a lot from that. And it's like it awakens in me also, and I feel more and more that I'm a flowing river. Okay. The river is like a river. He's the river that comes out of all these drops. In a certain sense, it's very interesting that on the one hand, he's like Moshe Rabbeinu. On the other hand, every leader is also a river, in that sense. And there's many images in Tanakh of people flowing like a river. It says, "V'na'aru elav amim rabim," that many nations will flow towards the temple. That awakens in people the feeling that they have a purpose. That's why you need the Beis HaMikdash. The Beis HaMikdash is connecting with this faith that you have some kind of purpose. Okay? So we said, so on the one hand we said that it all comes out from the wellspring underneath the Beis HaMikdash, the Gichon.
Okay.
And then it becomes a Shiloach, and it sort of like sends everybody out at the end of every Chag, with their shlichus, what they want. And we said that the Ruach HaKodesh that you get at especially in Sukkos, which has to do with Nisuch HaMayim, with this water that was taken and poured in the Mizbeach. The Ruach HaKodesh was that you understood what your shlichus in the next year was. But then, what do all the people who are not Jewish, what do? So he says they join, like they flow towards the base of Midrash. They're the opposite direction. They want to ascend, la'alot be'ar Hashem. They want to ascend the mountain of God, to come to an understanding of what their mission in life is.
I thought that the mission is more like when you describe the first level of faith, like to preserve.
Okay, but they want more. At some point, they're going to want more. The ones that will only want to preserve, so they can do some kind of preservation in the world, but at some point it's not needed anymore. The preservation's not needed, and everything moves towards some kind of innovation, something new. And so people have to decide if they want to continue preserving or they want to become something new.
What is the closed in a person, in an individual?
So
Closed treasure.
That's
How
the
should you
concealed
perceive
mind.
yourself that way?
That tomorrow you'll have as much brain power as you'll need. You have as many words as you need.
So you have to see.
You'll
it
have
as
whatever
something that
talents
I
you
don't
need.
Know
Okay, I don't know who I am.
Really?
Okay.
That's
Every day I'm new. It could be something new. Why? Because it's concealed. It's a sealed wellspring. And it opens up every day
so I
again.
don't really want to get to know myself that well.
You can't. But you have to have faith that what you know is still nothing compared to what there is. But again, it's not that that it's all accessible.
No,
If it was all accessible, so that would be again an open wellspring. Let's just use as much water as we can. The idea is,
It's also exhausting. It's too exhausting.
but it would mean that there's an end to it, because one of the most beautiful places, it's, strangely enough, it's called Ein Prat. I don't know why it's called that way, but outside Yerushalayim, there's a place called here. It's a few minutes away.
Where the water comes
Okay.
out? That's incredible.
There's a lot of well springs that are like that. It also has something to do with how the physics works there.
Yeah.
I don't know why it does it, but it'll fill the pool, and then once the water in the pool flows out, it's like for a few minutes there's nothing, it's completely empty, and suddenly it gushes up again. So geysers are there's a lot of stuff like that, but it's most interesting when it's like when it's a wellspring. It's not a geyser. It's not coming out like as a. I guess it's, for some people that's more interesting when it comes out as a geyser, but to watch it happen, have you been there?
Yeah,
I think everybody.
Filled.
It's called Ein Prat. I don't know why it's called that way. It's absolutely not the
great
Prat.
idea.
There's a Prat. There's the river Prat in Eretz Yisrael, which I don't know why it's called like that. But in a certain sense, that's how you should see your life every day. That you go to sleep, and when you wake up, there can be something new here, completely new. It's like it came out of nowhere. But I also have to believe that about the entire Jewish people, that every time it looks like no, it's over, and suddenly it brings something new out that I didn't know about.
Don't you have to have faith that you have what you need to say, or do?
Can
You
do.
have you also have to have the discipline or whatever you need to do. I mean,
To use it.
to use it and also to keep up with what it is you need to be.
To go from day to day to,
That's-
to have
you
continuity.
I want to learn
Lose my
a topic.
faith.
If you're going to become a doctor, whatever, you have to trust that you
Follow
whatever
from
it
day
is.
to
You have
day.
to follow through with your studying or your,
So
your
that's the big
practice or
difference.
whatever.
That if you're only building from day to day,
Uh-huh.
you're preserving.
Right.
I'm preserving yesterday, but I feel, or I'm supposed to feel, that today is something entirely new. It doesn't have to preserve. It can be everything from the beginning in a new light.
Okay.
If it's just preservation, it's like whatever I knew yesterday, that's what I know today. I just added more. It's quantity. And here I'm from the very beginning, we're revisiting everything. So don't be afraid to use up. When it comes to confidence, that becomes a very big deal. And again, this is all to build the source of trust. We haven't talked about this yet, but it's to build the trust, the confidence that I have in myself, that whatever I'll need tomorrow, I'll have tomorrow. I don't have to have it today. That when it comes to confidence, that's the hardest trick to do.
That's like the mana.
Right, exactly. That's exactly it. Velaktu dvar yom beyomo. Day by day. And if you leave it from one day to the next, it rots. Because it doesn't belong to this day. So that's what it means to have faith in the, you have to, it's very hard to do this. It's not simple. And he didn't keep any money. Okay? That thing of not keeping money at home, that was a bit, so if I have anything left over, I give it away. And whatever I need tomorrow, Hashem will give me tomorrow. And the story that we said from Rav Usher and so on, that he said, can somebody gave him a million shekels, old shekels, whatever. And he said, I don't want it. He says, why? Because if I take this million from you, what am I going to do with it? I'm going to put it in the bank. And so every day, what will happen? I'll come to the bank and ask them for what I need. I don't want to ask the bank. I want to ask Hashem. What's the difference? That if I ask the bank, that's preservation. That's exactly that. What I had, just this, slowly but surely you finish it. But when you ask from Hashem, it's infinite. That's the whole idea, that all these faiths, they're faith in the infinite. Just different forms of the infinite.
But it's still not bitachon, you said.
No, because bitachon is when I'm actually going to use money. And that already I need bitachon. Here it's just to have faith that who I'm going to all the time, he's infinite. Whether it's Hashem, whether it's the Moshe Rabbeinu of the generation, whether it's the Jewish people, whether it's a particular Jew.
Does it become conflicting? You have the faith, and then you're fundraising for something. It's a collection.
Maybe you should use it right away. I don't know.
No more banks?
Maybe.
Huh?
No more banks?
Maybe that's.
No more banks.
No, but you can't, if you're not keeping it at home, I don't know.
That's the way how. Theoretically, that's how. Again, everything in this world is not just tricky; it's faulty.
It's the way it's built in.
Because we live in a system that preserves all the time. We're stuck with this.
Right, I have food in my fridge for the next 9 days,
Yeah.
right?
We're stuck in it.
That's fine by me, I like takeout.
Right, fresh food is best.
No, but so then what is it?
So practically, I don't know what to do with the material side of the world,
okay.
but I do know what it's supposed to mean psychologically.
Right.
And psychologically, it's easier for me to explain that whatever talents, whatever you need for tomorrow, you'll have tomorrow. You don't have to worry about it. As I said, like in my writing, I see that when I don't have faith, to have faith in your writing is to believe that maybe it's first of all to believe that nobody will ask these questions. But secondly, maybe it's to believe that even if they ask the questions, so tomorrow I'll have a good answer for it.
And you
Right
should
now,
know
I don't
that.
have a
That's how
good
you
answer.
teach, so you should transport that to your
Said it.
writing.
So you can be my
Then it's
coach.
on paper.
Why, what would be time?
What?
There was an answer to this, it's not a bad way to look at it.
That's what Shimon asked me.
What?
I didn't have the answer right away, but
But
he asked the
by
question,
asking the
like,
questions,
the-
they some,
you know,
it sometimes
the
gives you the feeling that they're
Yeah.
Then he
rejecting
goes to
what you're
sleep,
saying.
say, come back
Ah.
tomorrow.
So,
And instead of sleeping, he davens, and in the morning, he
Good,
has the answer. He has
Yeah.
an idea.
That doesn't seem to be all you need, sleep. You must get that.
yeah, in my case, especially not. Anyway. So now we have a lot to work with in terms of how to understand these 5 levels of faith. And they're the top level of faith compared to the dveikut baboeh, clinging to Hashem, which is just to see the world being recreated at every moment. And in recreation, there's preservation. Right? The recreation is more preservation than it is innovation. It's not necessarily something new. It's just that Hashem has to bring the world into existence at every moment again, because the world doesn't exist on its own. He has to input himself into it all the time. But when he inputs himself into it, it doesn't mean that he changes it. It's just preservation.
It said that Hashem destroys the world
No.
and he builds it. No?
No, not necessarily. It just means that it goes back into the ayin. It has enough strength for this moment. The next moment he has to redo it again. But what does that?
Hashem does as well.
Can. But what does it give me? It gives me. It's also a type of faith, but it's the faith that this is what Hashem wants. This is what He wants. So if I see from moment to moment that a certain situation persists, so I know that this is from Hashem. I don't want to feel that the world is somehow running on its own, and I'm stuck in this because it's just stuck. It's not stuck. Hashem wanted it also now, and He wants it also now, and He wants it also now, and He keeps going like that.
And it's new, otherwise it's old. And this is not
Good. It's fresh. Every time it's fresh. So I have more strength. I can endure it from one more moment. I only have to endure this moment. I don't have to endure forever. I don't have to see an infinite train of moments coming out of this moment, because next time it could be different. But if I really want it to be different, so I have to connect to these levels of faith, to these 5 levels of faith, that they're completely different. And they really mean innovation. They really mean that there's an infinite source here, which is not about preservation. Okay, so now we have 2 levels of faith, and we also had 2 levels of confidence, right? What were the 2 types of confidence? We said there's passive confidence and active confidence. So that's on line 195. Hope you have it. From these 2 types of faith are drawn the 2 types of confidence. From faith in God, which is like deveikus, deveikut baboen. So faith in God as creator, comes trust or confidence in God, which is like what? Which is like passive confidence. But from faith in the tzaddik, which is these 5, it's just another way of saying these 5, like the catchphrase for them, all of them, is to have faith in the tzaddik. Which again is like to have faith in Hashem as absolute being, as the abyss, and faith in the tzaddik, and faith in the people of Israel, and faith in every Jew, and eventually faith in myself. From this comes faith in, from faith in the tzaddik comes self-confidence.
Trust
And
in yourself.
that's active confidence. To have trust in myself, that's already active confidence. So it's very strange, because at first it sounds like if you have faith in Hashem, how could that only give you the lower type of? In other words, which one is higher? To have passive trust in Hashem, or to have active confidence in yourself? So at first I would think that to have faith in Hashem is greater. To have confidence in Hashem, to be passively confident, that would be greater. In a certain sense it is. But when you say there faith in God, you don't mean faith in God as able to create a new reality, but rather as preserving reality. So therefore I'm passive there. Because passivity is like that, it's okay. It's going to continue anyway.
It's like nature.
Okay, it's preservation. The nature of the world is it's okay. It'll be okay. I don't have to worry. I have to be confident that Hashem wants the world to persevere. He wants, I don't know if that's the right word, because persevere is usually to overcome.
No.
But so He wants the world preserved. Chafetz b'chaim, He wants life. So just let it be. But for me to actually have active confidence, which is really confidence in myself, that's a higher level of faith in Hashem. It's not faith in Hashem as recreating the world. It's faith in Hashem as being
Innovate.
infinite, always infinite. Sorry?
You start to reveal Hashem more.
Yes.
Okay. It's a higher revelation of Hashem. But that higher revelation, strangely enough, also includes me. When it comes to preserving the world, I'm not a part. That's why I'm passive.
Sounds like there's no relationship in the first one. Like, I'm really not involved there. It's like I'm seeing something from,
Good.
I mean, I'm part
That's
of
what it
nature,
means,
but-
passive confidence.
Mm.
I'm not a party to it. It happens by itself.
Mm.
Because again, I don't know how to create a world. I don't know how to make the world continue. I don't know how to make it preserve itself. Because I'm not the one who made it in the first place. But when it comes to having confidence in myself, that, strangely enough, is like creating a new world.
Mm.
It's not the world that I know. It's something else.
Mm.
That's where I'm starting from psychologically. That I'm not happy with how it is now. And so I have to have active confidence. And active confidence is always, well, if you're not happy with how it is, so go do something about it. You can't say I'm not happy,
Right.
meaning I want something more, and say, I'm going to sit aside and Hashem's going to make something more. No, it's not. You're His emissary for that something more. That's why you feel it. When it comes to preserving things, everybody feels it. Everybody's pretty much equal. Because none of us have any role in it, really. We just sort of let it continue. But when it comes to changing things, then every person's individual mission is revealed. Because whatever you feel burns in you as something that needs to change in the world, meaning I want a different world, that's your particular mission. So trust in God.
It's not just like tikkun olam, like finding fault with all the things that are wrong in the world and wanting to fix them.
Okay, also, why
That's-
not? That's a very Jewish concept. Even if I have faith in the Jewish people, so I also have faith that the fact that some people talk about tikkun olam and really what they mean is, what do they mean? They mean banking for everybody. Things are opposite. Everybody should have access to banking. Everybody should have access to clean water. It's also all about preservation.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, because this is not how the world is now, that's sort of like tikkun olam for them. So it's sort of like that. That's their mission. It's a different world in the end. So it could be that. So I have to have faith that they're not completely crazy, but they're working on another piece of this mission of this generation. Okay, so trust is God is captured by the phrase "think good and it will be good," which is passive confidence, corresponding to the sphere of Hod, as described in chapter 2. While self-confidence is described by the verse, all that you are able to do with your own strength, you should do. So whatever is in your hands to do, what do you mean? Meaning, if you're complaining about it, if you feel that you should be able to change it, so it means that that's your mission. That's active confidence already. But you have to understand that to be able to be a river there, to be able to really act out what this mission of yours is, you have to take your strength, you have to build your strength from faith in other Jews. That's what he means. You won't have faith in yourself until you have faith in other Jews, because you're the final result of all the faith that you have in the Jewish people, in Moshe Rabbeinu, in Hashem, and in every Jew. So really these four levels before, they're the ones that, and mostly, but more important than all of them is the Vav, is the faith in another Jew. That's what builds your faith in yourself, and allows you then to have confidence in yourself.
Is it active? I mean, faith in other Jews doesn't seem very far-fetched
No,
or difficult.
that's not active at all. It's very, because all faith is passive. It's active in the sense that it's hard to have. I don't know, maybe you say it's easy. For me it's very hard.
Which part? So that's what I'm missing. What's hard?
When you see somebody who's acting against what you think is the interest of the Jewish people or the interest of the world, to have faith in them It's very, very
That
hard.
what does it mean to have faith?
That inside them there's the mission that they need to do, and all I
Inside their
need to do.
behavior right now,
Can.
or inside
No,
them?
in them. The behavior
them?
is not wanted.
Right.
But I still have faith in
And
them,
that's hard?
and I'm not going to push them with two hands away. So I have this guy now who keeps teaching these false teachings. So I have to hold myself like this, not to attack him. What do I have to do? I say, but I believe that somewhere inside here is his real mission. It's coming out this way. It's not right the way he's doing it. But he has this mission, and I believe that. So the Rebbe was a genius in being able to see it, and in so many words telling the person how to rephrase how his drops are coming out, like what he's trying to do.
My learner would like cross off.
Can
like adds
can
a word.
this not, but it's like this.
Would it be
It's a
effective
genius
if you
thing.
spoke to this person if they didn't approach you?
What?
Would it be effective if you spoke to that person if they didn't approach you?
Usually somebody doesn't approach you who is not interested in what you have to say. Sometimes you can say something that it's
But I'm sure you have faith in this person. That's what I'm asking.
set up.
You don't?
It doesn't mean that they will listen to you.
I understand, but we're discussing having faith in the Jew.
The more faith I have in other people, in other Jews, the more my own faith in myself.
And maybe it'll come out in them
So
as
the
well.
faith is
Not so.
passive,
Maybe.
so it doesn't mean that faith is going to change him.
No, I don't think
That's
it'll
what I
change.
just
them.
asked.
It won't. That's it. I don't think it'll change them.
I think the more
change
faith
you.
you have in them,
Why it might.
the more
It'll fit.
cause them to.
You never
At least it won't push them away. That's the main thing.
How
That's
the
what
Rebbe said about Lashon Hara, it's one of the things very powerful. That when you say something about someone else, you're making it harder for them to improve in that area. Like it just stuck with. So it should work the other way.
So, but they're already saying something. It's more than just faith in something.
Sorry, sometimes it's difficult if you see someone who's being self-destructive or introduced to the environment. So can't you sort of bypass it and just link your emunah to Hashem and say, Hashem, I have absolute faith and I know your faith in them will fix them or bring them around.
No, but they already have it.
I'm okay.
You know, Hashem doesn't have to put something new in them.
So it's saying, so it's
It's already there.
It just seems hard when that person is concretely in front of you or this person you're dealing with.
That's what it says. You need. That's what the Reb Pinchas of course used to say.
So you Hashem, that you will reveal your faith in him. Is that also?
But he's waiting for you to reveal your faith in him.
That's already nothing. That's the
A drop in the pen.
But
But you need a perfect tzaddik to love a perfect Russia. But you need to bring a lot of strength in it. The main thing is not to push them away. That's the hardest part. It's not that you don't rebuke at all or you don't this, but not to push somebody away. Not to tell you you're ois, you're
Not to
outside.
conclude and final.
This word inclusivity, like to be inclusive. So it's been whatever in the world. It's about preservation.
There's always no.
Nachon.
It's there, there's something good, and afterwards it.
It's not to push anybody away.
And would that mean that we don't have to actually do anything
Yes.
exact faith in that person can learn?
So that's the question.
Doing something.
I don't know. I don't know. They say that it is. So it is. It's better to say that it is. Oh, we'll say that it is.
I'm wondering originally that it's pretty invisible,
Okay.
invisible. However, it's impactful. Like
Right,
energetically,
right.
something does get communication
Right.
clear. Like it's not going to.
But this is such an important idea that if you can't have faith in other people, you can't have faith in yourself. That's one of the big chidushim that the Baal Shem Tov saw. I tried to look for the original statement. I couldn't find it. There is such a thing that
what is it that builds it?
What?
Faith in other people. How does that give you faith?
I saw something from
Confidence.
That's what I want now.
there's a state. I don't think the Reb Nachman ever said this, but yesterday I saw a letter from Eretz Doron, who's a big Breslover, and he wrote, "How do you know a real tzaddik? The real tzaddik is somebody who always has faith in you, who always empowers you, and never causes you to lose faith in yourself." He says, if you see somebody who puts you down, so right away you know that it's not this is not a tzaddik. He could be a very nice person, very good, but he's not a tzaddik in the sense he can't be a leader.
Equality.
He's not.
How does that work?
What?
How does that work?
So as we said, that's the vav and hey here. It's like the vav is always, it's like a male and female. So the vav is always giving to the hey. So the more faith you have in other Jews, the more faith you have in yourself.
Why though, I'm asking that.
So because we said that it's like all the drops coming together into you. Every Jew that you have faith in, it's like a drop coming into you.
Could that also be
It's like-
because in order to have that for another person to requires tremendous shiflot. So does that make us the key to kind of bring it down? Because it's malchut, when we have faith in ourselves, it's a place of malchut.
So if it's shiflut, so I said this is a topic that I at least never taught when I taught rectifying the ego, and I only started teaching it this year. I saw a sikha from the Rebbe. I told you about it, and that the Rebbe wants you not to be in shiflut. He wants you to be in anava, in humility.
Okay.
And then to have faith in somebody else means that I have faith that if he would have my talents, he would do much more with it. That's anava. Shiflus is just to say that I have enough averas, I have enough things wrong with me that I have no reason to feel greater than anybody else.
It's like Atzvas and Maru.
But
But also, the Rav talk about there's an ava in the shiflut.
Mhm. And he talks, and the Rebbe talks, and it's all in the same sikha, that you have to elevate from shiflus to anava, not to stay in shiflus. Don't stay in this feeling that I have so many things. From time to time you fall there anyways. But the day-to-day thought should always be that why do I have faith in other people? Because if they would have my talents, they would do much more with it. Not because I'm negative, but because I don't do enough with what I have, and they could do more. That's another.
Yeah, but they have different talents and women.
I'm saying if they had my talents, like what do I do? I'm comparing them to me.
Oh, I see.
So I did much more.
No,
It's
but there
another.
isn't any comparison really, because everybody has their unique abilities.
So, but that's what it means to
then
faith
that
in
they're
everybody.
going to actualize their uniqueness
That's also.
is all.
That's also true.
In quantity.
But if they had my talents, if they took my place, they would do much more with
In
it.
quantity,
Quality.
but also quality. Oh.
They would do
Sounds
much
like-
more.
No, but now in terms of what we were speaking about, the faith and then if they can actualize their abilities, that's going to
Can be both.
bring me to have faith in myself because
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
That can also be very self-sabotaging.
Which one?
That when you that kind of like, well, that person had, like, why should I even do,
But they don't.
push?
You have your mission. That's why you receive these talents. But why shouldn't you feel important or more important than somebody else? Because if they receive these talents, if they had my mission, they would do something much more with it.
How do you know that? I mean, who said
That's
that?
faith. I don't know
Yeah.
that. That's why it's called faith.
That's why it gives you a naval, so.
It's like all the unknown.
But it feels like it's true also.
Uh-huh. Is that? A little more.
Infinite source.
I don't know.
But isn't the having faith in myself, knowing that I'm going to do what is incumbent upon me to do? It's like, okay, that.
It's not that I will do, that's already confidence, but that I have everything I need. I've been given everything I need, now the question is what am I going to do with it?
Confidence is about doing.
Okay.
It's not about
It's the Netzach and Hod, it has to be actual action.
Thank you.
Thought, speech, and action. It has to come down to action.
Thank you very much.